Introducing Blocked, a new full-length payload map set in a quarry created by myself and my partner in crime, Pair Force 1, who I previously worked with on Overgrown and more recently, Yavla. The map is now available on the workshop to vote on and to subscribe to. I would very much appreciate it if you could take the time to go in the description of this video and check it out on the workshop. Every vote helps and gets the map seen that much more. What you're seeing now represents over a year's worth of work. This map started its life in December 2023 with a blank VMF, taking me a few months to get the first A1 version out, and then it was heavily tested and iterated on since. We were testing this map almost every week with my Discord map testing server, and plug, if you'd like to join in on the fun, hit up the description of this video. Overall, our major goal with this map was to invoke a feeling of old school TF2 maps, but with some modern twists, opening things up a bit, involving a lot of height variation, but still having the feeling of the choke point type gameplay with divided off sections of the map. Over the process of creating this map, we threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall, and a lot of it just fell off, but looking back, we're surprised at how much also stuck. It was really a testament to not being afraid of trying out new changes, taking big steps, and not overcommitting to anything. To simplify making this video, I decided to show every few iterations of the map, unless there were some important changes I wanted to highlight. So this time-lapse doesn't show every version I've released and tested. Often I do small changes all over for balance, and then give them a shot, see how they affected gameplay. Sometimes it would be as simple as adding a new ramp or changing a doorway or window, or as big as removing large gameplay elements and replacing them. One of the biggest examples of this was the central elevator area. This map originally started intended to be an entry for the TF2 map Stack the Deck contest held in 2024, where you had to incorporate a certain number of elements from a list, represented by a deck of cards. Two of the cards I chose were including an elevator as a main gameplay element, and two control points within 1024 hammer units of each other. I decided to do both of these cards in the same area of the map, with a control point at the bottom of the elevator, a long push to the top with a lot of emphasis in verticality, and then the next control point at the top of the elevator. My idea was to make a big gameplay circle around it, with the intention of blue fighting their way up to seize control of territory, while also trying to push the elevator in the middle to the top. In theory, it sounded like a good idea. In practice, I spent a lot of time trying to make this concept work, but it ultimately ended up just not playing very well. No matter how much I changed the area around the elevator, the gameplay boiled down to blue standing in one spot while red rained down on them. If I balanced it so red couldn't shoot down on them as easily, blue could just stand in one spot and succeed. If I gave blue more disadvantages, it ended up being just a lot less fun. I really wanted to make this work, and there were some fun aspects to it. It wasn't all bad. We had a lot of fun moments playing it, but often it either ended up being a complete roll, where red couldn't build any defenses up, or blue could barely touch the elevator and the entire map ground to a halt. When it did feel like it was playing well, with blue clutching a push with a fair bit of resistance, the elevator just felt more like a finale, and anything past it was just disappointing. The difficulty curve of the map was skewed. Typically in these types of maps, generally the further you get into the map, the harder it should be to capture each subsequent point. This isn't always a hard rule, but when you have a big epic moment like that dead in the center of your gameplay, it's hard to make anything past it live up to what came before it. So after fighting it for somewhere around 25 versions and tests, and after choosing to let the map cook longer than the contest deadline anyway, we were no longer shackled to the requirements of keeping the elevator, so we decided to scrap the whole thing. And honestly, the combination of giving it more time in the oven and choosing to scrap the core concept of the map, even though we invested so much time into it, ended up feeling like the best call for the map as a whole. Which is something I preach constantly. Don't get too attached to your work if you can make the map better. So I was glad I was able to follow my own advice to take this step. And honestly, a lot of my testers were really disappointed because the elevator did have its fun moments, and it definitely made for a unique aspect of the map. But I think without it, the area just has a lot more interesting back and forth since we scrapped it, and as a whole, the entire thing gets utilized more than it ever had before. And because of the original design, we still have an extreme emphasis in verticality in that area of the map, which gives the map some very unique gameplay. The problem we ended up having was, there was just this central cone in the map that blue had to stand in, so all the gameplay focused in that one point, and everything around it didn't feel like it mattered as much. So no matter how many tweaks I made, everything was just this cylinder of gameplay down the middle where the elevator stood. So I'm really glad we decided to change that up. Another area that saw big changes but was influenced by the first blockout is the opening area of the map. I always feel like the initial starting area is one of the most important aspects of a payload map like this. Setup time creates a lot of anticipation for both teams. Blue is staring out of their spawn trying to gather any kind of information they can about the layout and the opposing team, like what and who they'll encounter when those setup gates open, but meanwhile, red is scrambling to get to the front lines and set up a defense as quickly as possible. So when I'm approaching an area like this, I'm keeping all of those things in mind. I like my opening areas to feel big and have a lot to them, so I ended up with a corridor down the middle with a hidden flank off to one side and some height variation for blue to play with. From the earliest version now, we only expanded on these ideas, just opening things up more, and making the area feel even larger, giving every class something to do. Pear actually ended up overhauling this area quite a bit gameplay-wise, somewhere around Alpha 10, and it made it feel a lot better. Despite not having the same hidden flank off to one side, that concept is still there, just a little bit more open and visible. And Pear doing this was actually a really interesting dynamic on the map. Typically in the past, with like Overgrown and Yavla, I've taken gameplay lead for the most part, with Pear primarily focusing on detailing and creating assets. With exceptions, of course. But with this one, we actually ended up sharing those roles about equally. Pear ended up doing a lot more gameplay overhauls of area, especially last, which we'll get to next, and I ended up pulling my weight with a lot of detailing, especially interiors. It was actually a pretty fun project for me in that regard. I've often only done smaller areas of detailing, generally just starting detailing with more visually minded partners I've worked with to polish up later. Like for example, if you look at my project Shoreleaf, which I did with the mapper Freya, I was almost entirely gameplay while she did almost all the detailing, with the mapper Void also helping. I did a little bit of detailing on Yavla, but Block definitely let me step up my detailing game quite a bit. The opening area leads into the first building, which has a tight entrance and then opens up a lot for our first capture point. This area has changed a ton in development, with another one of the Stack the Deck cards eventually being scrapped, a delay mechanic where the cart would drill through a wall after the point, giving Red time to regather defenses in the elevator area. Honestly, the map had a lot of feature creep, with a custom drill payload cart planned, and a lot more dynamic elements that we ended up scrapping for the sake of just keeping the map simpler. It's a bit of a bummer to have to cull cool features like this, but honestly the scope just got away from us. Skipping past the elevator area, because we already kind of talked about it, the very top of the tower has had this kind of narrow corridor that we ended up actually expanding on and opening up as sort of a transition area into last. And I feel like it's a really fun, sort of old school feeling zone of the map that doesn't really exist as much in modern TF2 maps. But it's a lot of fun. I feel like it's a really fun area for Blue to kind of forward hold before they're pushing into that last. And then leading into last, oh, it was rough at the start. I really wanted this ridiculously large tower, and I was trying to force the gameplay around it. The cart would come to the area and down into a pit and blow up. That was it. That was the finale. I had thoughts of bringing the whole tower down in some kind of big demolition style explosion, which would have been really cool, but ultimately trying to force that was just hurting the gameplay. I knew there just wasn't enough happening on this last. The path in it was too short, there were no good defenses, even allowing players to climb around the tower didn't want to save it, it just felt forced. So around A12, Pear stepped up again and dramatically overhauled last, making the cart path further into the area, up and around some red defenses, into the classic bottomless pit. We found that this actually invoked a lot of the gameplay themes from the rest of the map, with verticality and clearly defined front lines of combat. Blue ended up with a sort of U-shape of control that they have access to around the first half of the finale area, leading to a very chaotic but fun last point. This finale honestly got nailed pretty quick when we made these changes, with only tweaks of Red's cover and how the blue-controlled territory could be held as our dials to adjust. The difficulty curve feels like it has finally been sorted out, with last being the hardest point to take, but we found in testing, even losing ended up with a lot of fun fights, and some last-minute tweaks to the layout seemed to bring the balance in line with how we wanted it. Ultimately, I'm super happy with where this map landed gameplay-wise. Everything feels solid, each area has their own fun moments, and the map has gameplay that doesn't exist in other maps, giving it its own unique feel. We're not 100% there on everything we want to do with the map. There's still some more visual elements and a lot of bugs to squash now that we did our detail pass, but that's just where we'll keep testing and working on it. As I said earlier, if you'd like to help us with this testing, the Discord server where we organize it is available in the description of this video. We typically test one or two of my maps and then a small handful of other mappers' projects most every Friday night. And again, we did do our official workshop launch to pitch this map for this year's summer update. I am confident that this map has great potential for the greater TF2 audience, so if you'd like to see that happen, or even just want to take a closer look at the map yourself, please check it out on the workshop. If you'd like to help us get it seen, voting, favoriting, and subscribing is the best way to do that. Each vote carries a surprising amount of weight, so we'd greatly appreciate if you could take the time to do so. We are also very interested in hearing your feedback, so reaching out to us on the workshop, TF2 Maps, my Discord, or even right under this video about your thoughts, or any bugs you find, is super appreciated. This map could not be possible without all the great testers who have helped us this past year. So huge thanks to everyone who joined us, everyone who left feedback, bug reports, laughed at us when crazy moments in the map happened, expressed frustration at the numerous issues we fought, or even just silently played the objective. Every one of you helped us get the map where it is today. If you'd like to see more of these kind of videos from me, consider subscribing to this channel. My growth on YouTube is sort of stagnated as I've slowed down on my videos, which is understandable, but I'm trying to focus on prioritizing it a bit more with shorts and easier to create videos in between all of my other projects I'm working on. But ultimately, it always helps to see numbers go up, am I right? And of course, huge shout out and thank you to Agent Maxwell, Boston Austin, Allison, and all of these other fine nerds for their support of my Patreon. They've gotten to see some extra behind the scenes work on this map and some of my others I've had in development, and get a special Discord role with a private channel for supporters. So if you'd like to see even more of how the sausage is made, consider throwing me a bone. The lowest tier is only $1 a month. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in game.